Thank you, Glenn. Um, yeah, before I begin, I just want to say thank you to Dave and Lisa, and especially Glenn for saying yes to my proposal. This is my first ever lecture, so I'm quite nervous. um, right. I'm going to share my screen to show this initial image. And, oh, I need to be abled to do that. Great. So this image is something I'd like you to just take in for a second. And when you're taking it in, try not to make judgments of sympathies or antipathies, but let it kind of look at you and allow for you to experience yourself in the way that it allows for you to experience yourself. Just notice somatic changes or impulses arising, if there's anything there. So this face is the face of a man that I followed in a dream when I was in India with Glenn. And as I followed this man, he introduced himself to many different people. And my experience of him was his experience of others. And what I was able to observe in his relationship with other human beings is that when he would encounter another, he would surrender himself to their being. And by being, I mean he would surrender his faculty of thinking to their soul life. And in this surrender of his thinking, he would actually free himself to encounter another human being in their process. It was a fascinating experience because it was an integral experience of selflessness and interest. And it was an experience of other human beings encountering a opportunity to process themselves in complete awareness and freedom because of another human being's interest and free invitation of their evolution to take place. So I'm just going to stop sharing that. Put you all full screen. So I think it's really amazing, Glenn's intuition to structure this series of lectures in this way. I didn't know it was going to be this way, but I'm so grateful that it was, because with Mike in the beginning, we heard about a very refined, conceptual, pure thinking reality. When I was listening to Mike, I felt that I could live with him in pure thought. Then with Catherine, I believe, or Catherine, we sort of descended a little bit. We entered into this confluence of pure thinking, scientific research, and the arts. So this pure thinking kind of mingled with a more material reality. And then with oh God, I'm losing the. Is it Jesse?
Jesse.
Jesse, yes. With Jesse, we really entered into the body and into the arts as body. And in my offering, it's actually the body. It's totally sort of the polarity of Mike's, in that pure thought becomes pure body. So if we think about this whole series of sharings as an organism that sort of intuitively was formed, we can really enter into this last thread that I'm going to try to weave with you all. And in order to do that, in order to step out of that picture I just gave and into the real experience that I'm going to try to co-create with you all, I would invite you to, when you listen to me as though I am evolving you based on my listening of you. So listen to me with sort of a free flowing of your being, rather than a categorizing or a sort of collecting of my concepts, but try to move beyond the concepts and really transform yourself as I try to listen into the space that we're in and speak therefrom. So the first thinker that I want to bring is Teilhard De Chardin. He, to me, is, out of all the thinkers that I'm going to bring, which is Teilhard, Steiner, Aurobindo, the mother, and Gebser, Teilhard is the thinker or the being that was able to live the most deeply in matter. He was a paleontologist and a spiritual scientist. And when you read him, you get the sense that he is so intimately connected to the physical sciences of the earth that he can actually experience his own capacity for love as something that transmutes matter. There's a profound intimacy in his thinking with the actual material evolution of the earth through Christ, through God. So when I read about Chardin's Christogenesis, I actually felt that he was speaking about a Christogenetic evolution, in that, yes, we form a genesis out of Christ, but actually this genesis is so connected to the material structure, the biological structure, that it's actually a genetic transformation through the omega point. And this was extremely inspiring to me because it connects to what Rudolf Steiner terms the resurrection body of Christ, as a body that, through the highest purity of consciousness, through the highest singularity of consciousness, was able to make its own physical manifestation creative rather than quantitative. So if we think of the resurrection body of Christ as the omega point, we can see that the whole entire human body, as a amalgamation of the entire earth and the cosmos, has the capacity to become self-aware, and then in that self-awareness become self-transmutable. It no longer lives as a material subconscient, but a conscious materiality. So the materiality itself is actually pure thought. So from Teilhard, with this Christogenesis, to bringing this resurrection body into a sort of practice of an integral social life, we have to look at the freedom of thinking. In the philosophy of freedom, Steiner basically, he writes a book that is his own initiation through freedom. He's really touching on the conceptual rigor and almost the conceptual death that was at its apex during his time in the early 1900s. And he's recognizing this need to take the concepts derived from nature and to see them as dead and fallen forms. And when he takes these concepts through his free spiritual self-initiative, he actually develops an epistemology of thinking that simultaneously births his individuality. We see that the birth of individuality is something that's made possible by the freely thinking spirit. And in order to do that, we have to experience the conceptual life that is derived from matter as something that has died, and therefore is no longer capable of housing the living spirit of the human. It actually needs to sort of become a fragment of the soul that we hold in our hands and turn it around like an art object. And through the spaces between these concepts, our free individuality emerges as a being capable of true integration with others that can transcend the bodily boundary and as well the conceptual boundary. So Steiner's free thinking really, to me, is the foundation of coming to Christogenesis. And in the life of Sri Aurobindo and the mother, we see a profound example of how the integral can become a social encounter, or how the social encounter can be integral. There's an amazing quote by the mother, I believe, about Sri Aurobindo and herself. And she says something to the effect of, without the mother, Sri Aurobindo Sri Aurobindo does not exist or is unmanifest. Without the mother, Sri Aurobindo is unmanifest. Without Sri Aurobindo, the mother does not exist. So what does this mean? It means the whole of integral yoga psychology. So I can't really explain all of it, and I don't know all of it yet. But what I'm thinking about is that when we see the biographies of the mother and Sri Aurobindo, we actually we see an example of the omega point. We see how the in-between of two individualities has become the actual fulcrum of their life's work and then proliferated out into thousands. Or the thousands around them has actually proliferated into the center of their relationship and sort of revealed this global potential, this social potential of their integral encounter, which is a universal opportunity. So getting more specifically, the mother is the divine Shakti. She's the embodiment of the life principle, basically. And the life principle is a principle of formative forces. It's a principle that is the foundation of hereditary genesis. It's the quality of the spiritual world that allows for sameness to replicate in plant, animal, human. I look like my parents, and so on. It also is the organism that we can tap into the Akashic record with. It's the organism that allows for Gebser's different epochs of consciousness to become scientifically and substantially available to our thinking. Um, so the mother as this divine Shakti is actually basically the life of the world. She is the womb of existence within which all substance exists. Sri Aurobindo is very different. He's an embodiment of the Purusha. He's an embodiment of divine individuality that actually has no connection to the earth, but through the Shakti. The individuality is a free intuition that is not substantial. It's essentially unmanifest. It's almost more like the father principle in relationship to the son, non-existence, existence, if we're looking at a negative theology. So when Sri Aurobindo and the mother come together, the mother has this revelation that now that she has met Sri Aurobindo, the world can be. And this is actually a revelation that she's speaking out of her own karma, her own biography that's going to develop. She's talking about the world, but she's also talking about her own being. That with Aurobindo, with the divine individuality incarnated in the world, the life of the world can actually manifest. Because without this divine individuality, which is an ordering principle, life cannot manifest. It's chaos. There's no free thought that spontaneously and creatively evolves the world. And what Sri Aurobindo sees in the mother is a human being with an almost unhuman capacity for surrender and faith. He speaks about her as being basically godly in her capacity to believe in God. And it throws him off guard almost, Sri Aurobindo even. So what that means is that he actually saw in her that she could carry forth his being or his avataric mission to bring the divine Purusha into the manifested life of the world. And if we look ahead in the biography of the mother, we see that she created Oroville, which I was lucky enough to visit with Glenn this summer. And Oroville is a cultural initiative. It's an initiative where all of the cultural vital aspects of humanity are invited to come together and sort of experiment and test each other out and really show like the face of the other through bringing oneself. What this means, and I'm going to go to Gebser a little bit, is that through the Purusha and the Shakti, we have an opportunity to encounter the other human being as a silo of the entirety of cosmic evolution coming into one self-reflective organism. But if we don't have the freedom of thinking, if we don't have the capacity or the interest in the other to devote our free self to the processing, to the evolving of the other in their self-reflectivity, we run up against a cosmic mission. We basically blind ourselves to the sacred arrival of the omega point, which is in between, yet which requires the transcendence of each other. So with Gebser, he speaks about this amazing science of evolution. He speaks about the precedent of evolution and the supplement. In my understanding, the precedent is constantly within the spiritual realm, and it is a creative origin that never actually incarnates. And because it never incarnates, it is constantly creatively creating itself. It's a precedent that becomes supplemented. Now, the supplement actually incarnates, but it incarnates sort of behind the precedent. And in our emergence into the integral, into our emergence into freedom, we are closing that gap between the precedent and the supplement of evolution. And the ideal, which we see in the resurrection of Christ, is that the precedent and the supplement have completely converged so that the creative capacity, the creativity of that which is the source, the origin of evolution, actually fully unites with the supplement of evolution. Creativity and creation merge so that there is no lag, basically. There is no collecting of the precedent through the supplement. There's no going forward into the future in order to evolve. Evolution is completely united with presence. And when this supplemented precedent, when this supplementation of the precedent happens, in that there's no more space in between them, there's no time anymore, then this entirety of Gebser's epochal consciousness metamorphosis basically becomes realized as the work of humanity. Because Steiner has this interesting quote that Lucifer allows for the human beings to see time. Without Lucifer, we only have space. But Lucifer brings the intelligence of time into our consciousness so that we can look into the past and we can look into the future with sort of memory. But Christ is not within time. Christ is transmuting time. So this idea that evolution is actually happening in time is only something that we engage in order to transform Lucifer or transform our intelligence, which is spanned out in this Gebserian like vast panoply of human experiences and biological evolution. When in reality, we're trying to transmute that aspect of the cosmos, which is time-based and therefore illusory. So let me see. How much time do I have left?
You have 6 minutes.
Okay, great.
Eternity.
Eternity. Yes. Okay, I guess I'll leave you with this. I think that the amazing opportunity we have with Steiner, Gebser, Aurobindo, the mother, Teilhard, Sri Aurobindo, I said that, yes. And more people I'm discovering every day. But this confluence of individualities, when we read them, there's an opportunity to engage in their actual spirit and not in their conceptual life. What I find in reading these individualities is that they actually each offer something to each other that allows for this amazing emergence of the integral to come into one image. In that with Steiner, we can experience an extraordinarily exalted initiate that is basically working out of the mystery of selflessness. So this provides some essentialness to how we need to develop today. With with Teilhard, we sort of bring that selflessness of Steiner and that totally free thinking into matter, into a real sort of crunchy divine love that is full of this Marian quality, this humility, and this joy of the personal, this profoundly personal transmutation of our biology through Christ, through the origin. Then with Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, we kind of enter into this incredibly intuitive realm that almost has, in the writing, very little to do with matter because it is so lofty and rarefied that we actually need to almost become invisible to experience Aurobindo thinking in us. Whereas with the Mother, she takes that invisibility and makes it life force, which allows for life to be incredibly mutable and creative. And then with Gebser, I feel like Gebser is operating in this in-between realm of Steiner and Teilhard, with a little sort of glimmering of Aurobindo and the Mother. He's sort of like bringing this cold, hard science into this warm, loving art, and finding this middle passageway that needs to invite a incredibly complex and vast thought system in order to actually find its center. But with all of these individualities, none of them can really exist on their own. They lead us into a certain aesthetic that is too personal. Whereas when they come together, they actually allow for our own individuality to open and to research our own process of transformation as a unique initiative. So the last thing I'll say is when we listen to each other speaking, I think these thinkers teach us that we need to listen to the individuality evolving the soul rather than listen to their ideas and crucifying the ideas as if they are things that exist as shapes that are material. We need to listen to the human being we are with as something that is shedding ignorance constantly. And in that shedding, the individuality and the free spirit emerge as this incarnational endeavor. Thank you.